let's briefly consider the solutions to the exercise on predatory pricing that I gave you. If we have a look at the typical situation, the situation that I described where marginal cost is constant and the firm needs to choose its price, of course, if it was going to maximize profits, it would look at the quantity where marginal revenue and marginal cost are just equal, and it would set a price that would sell exactly that quantity, the highest possible price. So there's our standard profit maximizing position. But of course, this is assuming that the firm is not adopting some strategy to influence other firms. In this case, a firm that might be thinking of entering the market and competing with it. So if we were going to have a predatory price and it was going to be less than marginal costs, you could draw in something that would look like this. So here's a predatory price. It's set at less than marginal cost. And if the firm sets that price, it's going to supply whatever people want to purchase at that price. So at that price, the firm is going to be losing money. This difference between average costs and the price tells us how much the firm is losing on each unit that it sells. And so, of course, the area that's marked in red is going to show the firm's losses. Now, unlike the earlier case that we looked at in monopolistic competition, where if a firm is experiencing losses, it might ultimately leave the market, here that's not going to happen. These losses are just temporary until the firm that's attempting to come into the market has been driven out. And then presumably the firm can resume its profit maximizing price and will regain those temporary losses. Well, I had a look to see whether anything like this had occurred in Canada recently. It turns out that the agency of the federal government that looks into this kind of behavior, it's called the Competition Bureau, is investigating WestJet for this kind of behavior. So this investigation started in December of 2018, and it was focusing on a branch of WestJet Airlines called Swoop, which is supposed to be a deep discount flyer. And so what had happened was that there's a small airline called Flair Air, which travels certain routes that WestJet's Swoop also travels. And Swoop cut its prices to extremely low levels, and Flair Air complained to the Competition Bureau, and so an investigation was begun. And I found this example of one of their fares on their website. Abbotsford is a city in British Columbia, and Abbotsford to Hamilton is quite a long way, and they're advertising this for $7.50, which looks like a pretty low fare. The article that I read described fares as low as $34, nothing as low as this, but I thought it was kind of funny that the ad here says, fares so low we're not making any sense. So, of course, predatory pricing would involve definitely not making any money, and so they're kind of advertising that that's what they're doing. Although they're not actually saying that it's predatory pricing, but there was a report that a WestJet executive had told investors that they didn't want to allow another entrant into the market. And that was not something that they should have said publicly, because, of course, that is really an abuse of dominant position, to quote the law. So that's an example of a possible example of predatory pricing. There aren't too many convictions of this for this kind of behavior in Canada. I suspect that the law is not really very well enforced.